It's James Steinhubel on TVU Grand Prairie. And today we have Renee Charbonneau, Executive Director of the Canadian Motorcycle Tourism Association. How you doing, Renee?
I'm doing well. And you, James?
So good, so fantastic. I'm so delighted that you are so present on social media that I eventually came across you, and I can't believe I haven't found you before. Tell us about what you're doing. It is so good.
Well, we are doing an enormous amount. Right now, the biggest project that the Canadian Motorcycle Tourism Association is undertaking is RUMBLE Alberta, an economic rebound event that has 44 routes, touches 400 plus communities, has hundreds of challenges that drivers and riders alike will be able to take part in to earn points. As they earn the points, then on different routes, they'll be able to win different swag bags. They'll earn different points. And then at the end of the season, we'll be giving away all kinds of prizes from different sponsors. Things like, prize for the most selfies, or the person who stopped at the most large roadside attractions, or the person who submitted the most receipts for French fries. Different challenges, all of them economic driven. The idea is to take a route that would be 4.5 to 5 hours, 6 hours long at max, and turn it into a 12 to 18 hour exploration. Teach people the history, get them eating the foods of the region, get them meeting the locals, get them connected to our province once again. Problem with life and COVID has provided some very unique challenges emotionally for small business, but it also has presented us with an opportunity to slow down and smell the roses a little bit. And so that's what this event is about, is giving rural Alberta an economic hand up, helping people discover that Sunday road trip. I don't know if you're the same age as me. I'm 60, be 61 this year. And I remember as a kid how big Sunday afternoon drives were. Mm. Everybody piled into the family car, or in our case, because we're on the farm, the adults in the cab of the pickup and us kids in the box. And we'd just tootle 20, 30 mile an hour down country roads and snoop in backyards and stop in to say hi to the neighbors. That kind of experience, seeing Alberta through the eyes of a tourist. That's what this is all about.
So that is so good. And that let's pull up the website on that. I'm just going to share screen because you can tell us about the graphics. You have so many cool people that are involved in all this. That's why, it's a great event, but there's so much else, right?
So, well, and the nice thing is the event actually kicks off the May long weekend and runs until the end of September. But these routes will be live for people to drive or ride all year long. They just won't have all of the discounts and the special offers attached to them. Without the Rumble Alberta event pass on your phone.
Who designed that for you? That's great.
I actually designed the logo.
Love it. I love it. It's got such great energy to it. So everything's here. You got the sponsorship kit. So if businesses want to get involved, they can click and sponsor. Mm-hmm. You've got everything downloadable. You got regional events. Wow.
Yeah. So if you click on, say, Rumble Alberta Northwest. Okay. You will see that there are 10 routes in the Northwest that you can ride. And what we've done is Slave Lake in the north is the hub. So we've made it so that you can ride into Slave Lake or drive into Slave Lake and then leave from Slave Lake. If you don't want to go directly back the way you came, you could take a different trip, earn more prizes, earn more points, see different things, try different foods. And then go back to your destination. And you have basically 4.5 months to accomplish riding 44 routes to compete for prizes.
And is this on an app too?
It's going to be all on an app, yeah.
That is so exciting. And then we've got North Central. So it looks like you're using Wetaskiwin as the hub.
Yeah, for the most part, Wetaskiwin, Red Deer, kind of
Wetaskiwin, Red Deer,
that little area. And then the Northeast, we're using Two Hills as our hub. And the Fallen Riders Memorial there in Two Hills. That's a big thing for us. It's the biggest project that we had undertaken was Wayside Fallen Riders Park. It was the brainchild of our president, Bob Ross, and his partner, Mark Koosman. And it features a memorial to all fallen riders, whether they died on their motorcycles or of cancer, heart disease, whatever that looks like. But a lot of riders tend to have their ashes scattered to the winds, leaving their family and friends with no real place to mourn for them or to think about them or reflect on their lives. And so Bob really wanted to give riders and their families that opportunity to have that sanctuary. So it's about a 2-acre space. It is an old Alberta Wayside Park. We took and turned the camping area, they have a building where there's a warming wood stove and things like that inside. That's all been turned into a chapel with a wraparound deck. The bathrooms have been upgraded and refurbished and new roofs put on them. So we took an old abandoned site and made everything that was there reusable. We added some buildings for storage, and you can host events. We've got the wraparound driveway has been paved, and you can host memorial events and rider services, you know, if someone passes, for up to 100 people pretty comfortably.
And that's where?
In Two Hills.
And is that online?
Not really. They're on Facebook.
They'll be on Facebook.
We are going to be building them a new site. We've been slowly amassing a lot of content from Bob. But he lives in Beauvalin, where there's not much for Wi-Fi service. So trying to organize stuff for him long distance has been challenging, but we're slowly getting there. But Bob is a lot of the reason why we're doing Rumble Alberta. He had this crazy idea about a timed poker run. Came to Sheila, our vice president, who is an award-winning historian and runs the History Check app, and said to Sheila and I, you know, we should do an event that would be timed, and this way it would be COVID friendly. And, you know, so Sheila and I met in Slave Lake. A couple days later, we started talking. And from conception to completion, we hosted Rumble Alberta North last August. It was a week-long event with a week's worth of marketing, and we built 40 partners. And we created 10 routes. We had 60 riders participate on short notice. And the engagement was off the charts. We had an absolute ball hosting it, and we learned so much that that's how we ended up being able to come out through the whole province. And doing it as a touchless event meant that riders and drivers don't necessarily have to physically, they don't have to have any paper, they don't have to hand something over to, all they have to do is show their phone, right? Nice. So it's all scannable, and all of those kinds of technologies are being implemented. And like I said, it's meant to really celebrate rural Alberta. You'll notice as you go through the maps, we don't go to the Rockies. We don't go to Canmore and Kananaskis. We don't go to Calgary. We don't go to Edmonton. We go to Red Deer, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie. Those are our biggest centers, and everything else. Just in the Northwest event alone, we touch 108 rural communities.
It's so good. Yeah, I'm convinced of how fantastic this is. This is wonderful. And
yes, and it's meant to help the littlest of business. So here's how small business can get involved. I mean, we have COVID pricing for our sponsorships. Of course, once we realized COVID was going to stick around for another year, we thought, well, this is what it should be, but we know that everybody's struggling. So we have COVID pricing on everything. So small business can have marketing and support and be part of the event for as little as $300 for 15 months worth of marketing. And our presenting sponsor, we're looking for a presenting sponsor, and that position is at believe it's at 44.9, should have been 50,000,
Mhm.
but it's a 5-month event. And we've made a deal with a company that has digital highway signs right at the airport at Edmonton.
Mhm.
Digital excellence is what they're rated as. And our presenting sponsor will be getting a minimum right out of the gates with our purchased media, a 4-to-1 ROI. And that's before any earned media. That's before any engagement from our influencers. We have a foodie influencer out of Sylvan Lake who is a mom with a minivan. She's going to be doing some of the Rumble Alberta stuff and interviewing small businesses and, working on building her social network while providing us with the content and the video footage and the photography and those sorts of things. We have an adventure rider. He is a police officer and an avid motorcyclist. And he's actually setting up for us 6 to 10 adventure routes so that people in side-by-sides and off-road, on-road bikes can go and tour and then come into businesses that are going to support them. We have a younger person that's come on board. We're going to hopefully be doing some interviews with him, see how he does. So our influencers are going to be from all walks of life. Jeeper, we're looking for somebody who likes driving Jeeps. Hot rod clubs, touring clubs, Jeep clubs, soccer clubs, moms in minivans. We want them all. If you've got a driver's license and a vehicle, we want you to take part in this event and to explore Alberta. And we're working with anchor events throughout the province. So in Wetaskiwin, we're working with the Ride to the Reynolds. Now, whether the Ride to the Reynolds is going to be allowed to happen in as big of a fashion as Cynthia Blackmore and our association has worked on in the past, 12, 13, 1,400 bikes in a day, we may have to spread it out. So we can do that. And we can help those events drive awareness and participation in their events by going, okay, give me a challenge, give me some tickets. The first rider who does X can win. And so we can shoot that out through push notifications, through social media, and be able to help little events that need that last F push. So it's going to be fun because we can do a lot to support our community on so many levels. It's about building the team and having the right sponsors on board, because if the sponsors are marketing the event, we're marketing the event, and it's just going to go virally nuts, because with 400 communities and an average of 25 stops per route.
Oh, good. You're involved. So you got the Rumble Alberta that's coming from the Canadian motorcycle tourism.
That's correct.
You also have a longer term initiative. You got your rider friendly business directory.
That's right.
And this is all online. These are all just fantastic initiatives. And I really sense with the vision that you have and the depth and the care that you care about people. You've got a real passion, not just for motorcycles, but for Alberta and as a place to live and enjoy. Tell us about you. Where do you come from?
Well, I'm originally was born on the Armed Forces Base in Port Churchill, Manitoba, to two veterans. At that time, they were serving soldiers. My mother, of course, was forced to leave the military when she had me. We were what you would call the oil Canadian family. My mother was from Grand Falls, New Brunswick. My father was from Galahad, Alberta. And my brothers and sister and I come from, I'm from Manitoba. My baby brother who died here, or my kid brother that died here about 9 years ago, he was born in Ontario, in Downsview on the base there. And then I have a younger brother who was born in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and a baby sister that was born in Stettler. So we've lived just about, well, I've traveled all of Canada 7 or 8 times over, but we've lived in a good number of the provinces or passed through them a lot because of my grandparents living in New Brunswick. So for myself, travel has always been a big passion. I love motorcycles and anything mechanized or with wings, thanks to my father. He was my prime babysitter. My mother was very sick. And when she was pregnant with my younger brother, my father had to do a lot of the caregiving to me. And so if I hung out with my father at the racetrack, the oval track in Toronto, when he was a mechanic on the race team. A lot of times he would take me to the track on his Norton because he had a Norton Commando. He had all kinds of different motorcycles and things as I was growing up. So he gave me a love of everything automotive. And then throughout my travels, I ended up living in the United States quite crazily for about 4 years as the crew chief on the Green Mamba Jet Dragster.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm one of those people. I grew up
Give me a story. Give me a story about that.
I grew up in a generation of people that, you always heard people say, I wished I would have. Wished I would have done that. I wished I would have done this.
One story about the dragster. One story about the dragster.
I got to the point where if I was going to do anything in my life, I wanted to make sure I wanted to be one of those people who could say, I'm glad I did. Right? So I start going to the racetrack. I have a 1972 Dodge Dart Swinger Special, and I'm powder puff racing. And I meet this crazy character, very good looking man, double below the knee amputee from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with this wicked jet car. And he was chasing my girlfriend. She was a statuesque brunette with a pair of 44 double Ds that every man in the place just kind of, gravitated. She was very, very pretty on top of it all and a nice person. But we were roommates, and every time he'd phone, she was out with somebody else. So eventually he and I found out we had a good friendship going. And he invited me down to the racetrack, and the next thing you know, I'm crewing for him and helping him out. And we had this long distance relationship for about 8-9 months where he'd fly me in and out of various races, and we'd hang out together for 7 or 8 days on my days off. Eventually, I got the opportunity to work for a man named Bruce Gessling at the Combat Jet and Aerospace Museum in Chino, California. I had been waiting to go into the Canadian military. It was during the hiring moratorium between 1980 and 82. And finally, I got tired of waiting and I started applying. I wanted to be a jet engine tech. I was really into that sort of stuff. So I got the opportunity and had a man down there. And the next thing you know, I ended up as an illegal alien in the States for 3.5 years, chasing a jet car 300,000 miles a year around the country, meeting crazy people like Don Garlitz and Chris Karamessinis and Tom McEwen and Don Prudhomme and all of the big ones from the 80s and all my idols from my childhood, because of course I was always with my dad. So I should have been born his first son because I loved everything mechanical. Like I said, down in the States, very, very different world. I went through culture shock, something terrible. California, nobody gets out of their vehicle. I mean, in the 80s, they already had drive-up post office boxes, drive-through funeral homes, drive-through gourmet restaurants and wine stores. You never got out of your vehicle for anything. 6 lanes of traffic wide. And I came from Redwater, Alberta, where, I moved to Edmonton at 18. I could still go home at 4 o'clock in the morning with $800 in tips in my pocket, walking, never, ever have an issue because there'd be a police car every couple blocks. You'd just see them following you home because they just finished doing a bar check and they knew who you were. Nowadays, we've lost a lot of that. And so for me, history has become a very important player in my life, because I've learned that through history, we get connected to so much about who we actually are. And warts and all, Canada's a pretty damn fine place. And here in the North in particular, the fabric of our world is so diverse, and people just have no clue about. You know, you look at 1913, 1914, just as the war started. We had people living here in northern Alberta from all around the world. Denmark and France and Poland and the Ukraine and Germany. And like, it's just incredible when you look at history and all of these phenomenal things. And guess what? All the action in the 1900s, the early 1900s, took place in rural places. The big stuff didn't happen in big cities, you know, only the stuff that happened for show. But the actual work, the actual excitement, all took place in rural Alberta.
So good. And you know, you're connected with so many other congruent organizations that are going to benefit from Rumble Alberta. You know?
Absolutely. And what we want is we want to lift everybody's ship. You know, when you are part of a community, you raise each other's children, you support each other through thick and thin. And I come from a generation where when a farmer's wife's husband got sick, his crop was taken off by his neighbors so that the wife wouldn't have to stress. And people supported each other. To get back to that kind of sense of community through something like Rumble Alberta, where we can once again start identifying with people as humans. The mask issue has really taken its toll on people. Social media and all of the censorship there has taken its toll on people's emotions and attitudes. It's time to get back to humanity. And bubble tourism for the next while is going to be where it's at. And it's going to allow for those meaningful connections between consumer, tourist, and business owner.
Good. It's good. How do people get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me through rumblealberta.com. They can email me at exec.director@motorcycletourism.ca or call me at 780-933-0182.
Renee Charbonneau, Executive Director, Canadian Motorcycle Tourism Association, with me, James Steinhubel, on TVU Grand Prairie. Thanks, Renee.
Thank you.